You're listening to The Jack Blood Show because you give a crap and you want to know what to do about it. Now let's get to work.
Here's Johnny.
We're live today. It is August 16th, the year 2012. No Agenda Global Radio and affiliates. I am again your narrator, your radio gun, Jack Blood, reporting. David Icke usually comes on about twice a year with us. I do consider him a good friend and a huge influence and inspiration on some of the work that we have done. I always tell this story when we bring David on because we started getting the handle on what the nature of how deep the conspiracies go all around us. You know, it freaked us out a little bit. And thanks to people like Maria Heller and David Icke, good friends of ours, you know, we kept a level head about it. And, yeah. That love is the only infinite truth. Everything else is an illusion. Fear is control. These are some of the things that David Icke has talked about all these years, and he has been right about so many things. So we keep a very open mind to what he says. His website is davidicke.com. Here in about a month and a half, we'll talk about this. He'll be doing a global awakening at Wembley Stadium in England. He's been on a world tour just unlocking minds everywhere he goes. He is David Icke. Thank you, David, for being with us.
Hello, Jack.
Good to have you. How have you been, man? Are you taking care of yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I've lost 16 pounds. I've got a bit fit. I feel very healthy, and I'm writing a book and getting ready for Wembley, which is like a 9-hour presentation, which I'm basically have started from a blank sheet of paper. So that takes a lot of getting together, and yeah, it's all going well, really.
How many people are going to be at Wembley?
The depressing thing is when you look at the news and see what's happening, but you know we have to counter that.
Yeah. How many people can show up at Wembley? How many people are you expecting there?
At the moment the maximum we can have is 5,500. So 5,500 at the moment, and we'll see how it goes from there. But it's an event that I wanted to do because I wanted to get a large number of people together. First of all, to make a statement about the fact that large numbers of people are now beginning to question the official story of life and not having it anymore, but also because we have gone through, Jack, this summer in England, almost a continuous ritual. First of all, with the Diamond Jubilee of the Queen, with all its ritualistic events, and then straight into the Olympics with its incredibly ritualistic opening and closing ceremonies. And, you know, what I'm finding interesting is even some of the more challenging and what people might call extreme things that I've talked about over the years are increasingly being encompassed by more and more people. And, you know, to understand what's happening in the world that we experience with our conscious minds, and to understand the true nature of the conspiracy, we have to realize that this world that we perceive as this solid world of the conscious mind is actually just an holographic illusion. And in fact, it's like a holographic movie screen. By the time we are experiencing it in our daily lives, it's hit the screen. It's like standing in a movie theater, complaining at the screen because you don't like what's being played on it. What would be the point of that? You're not going to stop the movie. It's hit the screen. It's happened. Done deal. But the question is that I've been asking all these years, because the greater understanding of how it works comes from this, and what we can do about it, is where does this projection come from? I mean, you know, you look at this extraordinary tapestry of interconnected change and imposition, everything from the banking scams to manipulated wars to manipulated terrorist attacks and you know, mass killings, to the stuff they put in our food, the stuff in the water, the manipulation of the electromagnetic field in endless ways that's going on now. On and on and on and on it goes. Weather manipulation, stuff that they are adding to food that has electrochemical effects. All these things, and I've just listed a few, are all coming in at the same time. Okay, so either they've got an absolute army that is so coordinated that in the end, a few people sitting around a table discussing their next move can orchestrate this, or we're looking at something that is much greater and much deeper and much more profound. And it seems to me, after all these years, and I'm going to be talking about this at Wembley and in a book I'm writing now, is that what they're actually doing is encoding the electromagnetic field, if you like, the energetic level of this reality, with a pattern, with a projected change or pattern of change, and then it plays out into the holographic realm as this amazing synchronistic change. To put it simply, if you encode a sequence of events upon a computer disk, and you put the computer disk in the tower and press play, on your screen, that sequence of events, which on the disk is merely a series of computer codes, will play out one after the other in a sequence exactly as encoded on the disk. Something like that is going on.
David, let me first of all, for if you're new to listening to me and David, I let him talk most of the show because he's brilliant, and I just love getting this time with him, and so he can talk to you. And even though I'll only talk a little bit during the interview, David, your fans will still think it's too much. But I have to interject a little bit here because you're talking about these computer codes in our brains and computer codes around us, that life is again kind of like a matrix, and it is really important to, if that is the case, find out who's responsible for this. I sent you a clip earlier today of a new movie coming out called Branded. And I want to just play a little clip of that for the audience to get you to comment on this, because it's exactly what you're saying. And it looks to me, this movie looks to me to be kind of a modern-day interpretation of the great movie They Live, which I know you've talked about quite a bit, as have I. So let me just play this clip for my audience, and it looks like life is, well, art's imitating life again. And they're trying to tell you something here. I think this looks really cool. So here it is. We'll just play this for a minute or two. There you go. Competition is a sin. So you have to kind of see the visuals to go with that, because what it basically is, David, is, if you've seen this, a Branded.
Yeah, I watched it earlier, yeah.
Is that the humans, in order to get consumers to buy stuff, plant this computer code into their brain so they'll do whatever they want. They can control their desires and to make money. But really, it's someone behind that is tricking them to induce that into people's brains so that they can be controlled on a much higher level. I mean, there it is.
Yes, it is, and branded can have a number of connotations, because we have a program in this country which is run by this guy Simon Cowell. I know in America,
American Idoler.
You want rubbish television, give Simon Cowell a call, and they have titles. One set of titles had this X coming past, X Factor that it's called. Passed through the Saturn rings, and other titles had it coming from the moon, which are very significant to anyone who's read my recent books. And this X flies towards the Earth and then hits the Earth and brands it, like a cattle brand. And in so many ways, the Earth is branded. It's branded with a fake reality, which we're decoding. And there's so many. I wasn't expecting to talk about this when I started off, but it's great, because this is deep stuff, and we're getting very, very close to how this is done, and how 7 billion people can be controlled by a handful, by controlling their perceptions. This is the key: their perceptions of reality, their perceptions of self, their perceptions of world events, the perception of everything. And I've been talking, as you know, Jack, for God knows so many years now, well back into the 90s, about this common theme in the ancient world of humanity being genetically manipulated. I mean, more and more people now are beginning to look at this and see the unbelievable common themes of the accounts from all over the world. And what I'm saying is that this genetic manipulation tuned the human form, which is at the body level. I call it a body computer. It's a biological computer. And DNA, which cutting edge of even mainstream science, or just off mainstream science now, ahead of mainstream science, is accepting this now, is a receiver-transmitter system. That's what DNA is. And what your DNA is tuned to, it will pick up, and we will decode into the holographic reality, the world we think we're experiencing. It's exactly the same themes as the Matrix movies. And so what I'm saying is this genetic manipulation entuned the human receiver transmission system to a certain frequency. We call that frequency visible light. And so we pick up this ludicrously tiny band of information, which is known as visible light, which is so tiny it's unreal. And I suggest that there was a time before this genetic manipulation when the human range of what we call sight, but visual decoding into a reality we visually experience, was far, far wider than it is now. I mean, it's so tiny now. It's funny. What's that figure? Mainstream science says that of what they feel exists in the universe in terms of mass, matter, and energy. The electromagnetic field is about 0.005% of that. And visible light, which is the only frequency range that we can decode into what we see, is a fraction of the 0.005%. This is what we're dealing with. And it seems to me that there is a manipulation of the information that we receive within that frequency and what we call the electromagnetic range of frequencies. And then the question is, are we going to decode that information into a holographic version of it, our daily experience, or are we going to not decode that? And that...
Do we have the decoder? I mean, that's the whole thing. Let me cut you off there, because a lot of what you're saying we talked about on the last interview you did here at the first of the year. I think I was the first one to have you on in 2012 on Blood Bites World, which I've never heard you sound better, David. I mean, that's about 2 hours, folks, of just mind-blowing information just like this. But you lead me to another question, David, and that is something very coincidental, I guess we'll call it. James Holmes, who is the alleged orange-haired Joker shooter at Batman Rising, right, Dark Knight Rising? That is the Phoenix reference. In Aurora, Colorado, that is the City of Lights. That's the light bearer reference. But this is a guy who was highly advanced in mind sciences. In fact, he'd received one of the few grants in this country to study something called the temporal order, in which he himself says they have found a way to separate reality from what's real outside and reality in your head, which they can control. Temporal order, temporal reality, and this is the guy that went up and shot that theater up in Batman, allegedly, because, David, there's no witnesses that saw him do it. Unfortunately, there was smoke. The guy was wearing a gas mask. There were 2 gas masks. No one's explained that. So you've heard a lot of it. I'm sure you studied that Colorado shooting, and then I guess also the Wisconsin shooting with the guy who had worked with the Army's psychological operations unit before he did this shooting. We might even have him tied to Columbine. But because it is, I think, relevant to what you're talking about, here's James Holmes, this kid who's studying the mind sciences, and who is sponsored by the government, and who allegedly does this shooting with all of these coincidences and markers and calling cards by the elite Illuminati.
Yes, the background to James Holmes is just full of stuff linked to psychology, to mind manipulation, to reality manipulation. I mean, he was apparently being quote, treated or being seen by this psychiatrist, Dr. Lynn Fenton, at the Colorado University where he was. And then you've got Wade Michael Page, as you say, at the psychological operations specialist at Fort Bragg. And Fort Bragg in North Carolina has appeared in my books many times over the years, because it's one of the great centers of basically the war on the human mind. And this is the key here, because if there's a few of you and you want to control the many, you can't do it physically. You can do it in small areas with soldiers in the street and on the door and tanks in the street, but you can't do it to 7 billion people. You have to manipulate the way they see reality so that they then behave in a way that suits your agenda. And like I was saying, we have this information field that's being projected at us. It's this encoded blueprint for the way that the world is desired to change in the electromagnetic field. And then we have to be plugged into it. And if we are stuck, as most people are because of the nature of the way we're manipulated from cradle to grave, they're stuck in the level that they are decoding and perceiving reality only through the 5 senses overwhelmingly, then they are going to, without much challenge, they are going to decode this projected reality. But if you are conscious beyond the 5 senses, if your mind is open to the greater self, the greater consciousness, you have another point of reference. You have another point from which you can observe the world of the 5 senses. And those people do not, in the same way, decode this encoded projected agenda. They don't. And this is why those in authority are targeting those people. This is why they target anyone they think is open and more expanded in their awareness, because they are not going to get caught in the matrix like other people.
And that's the target. And of course, this guy being the face for all of us that might be like that. Again, we have a guy with orange hair. He looks like an occupier. The next guy is a Nazi. He looks like a Tea Party guy. We'll get to sectarian violence in a little bit. You mentioned Lynn Fenton, and let me pop this in again, so people missed our coverage on this. She was at Laughlin Air Force Base in San Antonio, where Jolyon West was studying, and we know their little mind control experiments.
Jolyon was a major CIA military mind controller.
And so she was basically his handler, is what we think, and maybe kept him quiet. I'm not sure if the guy was set up as a patsy or not, but there's just too many connections here, not to mention the fact that this kid grew up in San Diego, which is known to be a center of mind control and military exercises.
Yeah, and it's all there, and maybe partly they're getting lackadaisical in the way they're trying to cover these things, but also more and more people are getting more and more streetwise to see things that would have passed them by before. And it's interesting to me, Jack, where you see over and over and over again these movies now, which are what people call predictive programming. They are telling you what the agenda desires the world to be like. Now, I'm not saying that all of these are necessarily involved. One or two might be people trying to say, hey, this is happening, wake up. But a lot of them are put there on purpose. The question is why? What is this predictive programming? And it seems to me, in this theme that I'm talking about here, of this blueprint for the, whatever you want to call it, the new world, the Orwellian world, being actually in the ether, in the electromagnetic level of reality. And we have to be plugged into it so that we then decode that information collectively into holographic reality, which means what? We are being manipulated to decode into daily experience our own Orwellian prison. This is how it's being done, I would suggest. And all these movies that are saying this is they're not saying it, openly, this is how it's going to be. But what they're doing is projecting to us in this increasing number of movies with the same theme, one after the other. They are telling us the world that they want it to be like. Now, what's that going to do? That is helping to tune us in to that reality, to tune us into that information field that we will then decode from the computer disk, if you like, onto the screen of daily experience, the world that is imprinted. So it seems to me, Jack, more and more, sounds crazy to many people. I really don't care. I'm interested in the truth, not a popularity contest. But it seems to me that we are being collectively manipulated to bring into reality the prison that's being encoded, if you like, on the symbolic computer disk. And this is why I keep saying to people, don't think, don't believe, don't accept that this reality has to happen. It doesn't. There's 7 billion people being manipulated. There's a handful doing the manipulating comparatively, and they're able to do it by keeping us in the dark from this stuff. You see, when you look at the Olympic opening and closing ceremonies, these people work with energy. They're trawling human energy. They're trawling human consciousness, and then they're recycling it back against us with this encoded reality. So when you get, and you know, it's a great saying and so true, energy flows where attention goes. Someone was saying to me the other day, isn't it amazing, you know, you feel that like you've got two eyes in your back, and you turn around and there's someone staring at you. It's like you can feel their eyes. Well, you can't feel their eyes. You can feel their focus. You can feel their attention, because when their attention is upon you, an electromagnetic, energetic connection is made by that attention. Now just think, Jack, when that flame was being created in that ritualistic way in the opening ceremony in London, an estimated 1 billion people worldwide were looking at that. Billions were looking at the closing ceremony, which was on a Sunday, and more people around the world could watch it. And you have that attention, and these people know how to draw that energy. They're always looking to get our attention, because by getting our attention, they get our connection, they get our energy. This is what
they don't call it a ceremony for nothing, David. But I have to take one of 2 breaks we'll take, and you'll be with us for a full another hour. Part of that is going to be backstage just for our archive audience, something special for you, a treat for you. I want to remind you to remember who you are, which is, coincidentally enough, the title of David's latest book, Remember Who You Are. And that is the thing. It's inside of you. You know who you are. You've just been tricked into thinking you're one of the sheeple out there. You're not. That is the important thing. And this book is amazing, David. You know, I've probably gone through it twice already. Can't wait for more books. I've read every one of your books, and I have an open mind. It's a real test sometimes for all of us, David, but I have an open mind. Speaking of the closing ceremony, Muse played the ceremony. When we come back, I want to talk about Muse. By the way, we didn't get to see that here, David. The CBS Cult of the Eye, they didn't show us the closing ceremony because they had to show a shitcom, as I call them over here. So we didn't even get to see that, whatever it was. But I want to talk about Muse because they had an interview a while back that we haven't played for our audience yet, kind of laughing at the reptilian thing and saying that the Illuminati is kind of a joke. They serve the Illuminati. Some of it, I think, is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I like to play that for you and get your response. David Icke is with us, davidicke.com, playing at Wembley Stadium here, and we'll get the exact date on that in about 2 weeks. Stay with us, folks. Come right back after this. I am Jack Blood. This is the Jack Blood Show. We are live today, the 16th day of August, 2012, allegedly. David Icke is with us for the full hour. We are... We're peeling the onion. You know, you got to keep an open mind to all of this. I'm testing you today. If any of this upsets you or makes you mad, you got a little growing to do. I think that's the whole thing, and that's what David does so well, is he really tests you a little bit. And then I don't know if you do that on purpose or not, David, but it works pretty good. If people get upset, that is because they're still living a little bit in their, excuse the term, reptile brains. You know,
well, the thing is, Jack, I don't do it on purpose. I have a very simple philosophy. I want to know what's going on, and once I reach a certain point in research and conclusion, then I talk and write about it. And how people receive it is up to them. It's none of my business how they receive it. It's their business. It's their right to make that choice. But you know, one of the greatest prisons that and the greatest forms of perception suppression that there is to limit people's sense of the possible. This is so important. And these bloodline families, and by the way, talking about bloodline, you mentioned Vlad the Impaler there. he is an ancestor of a blood ancestor of Prince Charles and the British royal family. You know,
George Bush and John Kerry.
Yeah, so when you follow these satanic blood-drinking, sacrificing bloodlines, you find some very interesting names. Anyway, what they understand, these bloodline families, is that if you can limit and suppress someone's sense of the possible, you will put them in a box in which you can manipulate them and the world in general through techniques that are beyond the person's suppressed sense of the possible. And when someone comes along and says, this is how they've done it, then the limited sense of the possible goes, that's not possible, that's ridiculous, you're mad. And what I wrote an article actually relating to the shootings in James Holmes and the Wisconsin shooting, in which I was talking about this, like, standing wave in their head. Standing wave is when two waves of equal power hit each other and cancel each other out, and they start vibrating on the spot. It's like vibration running on the spot. And one standing wave in the mind is the lie, the official story, for instance, of James Holmes that you rightly say no one can prove because the guy who did it, and it certainly wasn't him. I mean, please, intelligent life calling planet Earth. But there's the lie. But because if you don't know, or you cannot absorb the fact that you can mind control people to do things, or you can mind control people to take the rap when other people do them, if you can't accept that, then you have no alternative in your head to the lie. So the lie is the only show in town, because you can't have an alternative to it.
No.
Because the lie keeps bouncing against your limited sense of the possible, which is, you can't mind control people to do that or do anything. No. And that is going on all the time. So when you look at the areas that I've already talked about, Jack, in this show today, for a lot of people, their sense of the possible, religiously or mainstream scientific, will be bouncing that back and creating a standing wave, which is saying that's ridiculous, that can't happen, that Ike's mad, and all this stuff. And this is going on all the time. One of the great ways they suppress us is suppressing our sense of the possible, and then they operate outside our sense of the possible, and most people dismiss that it could possibly be that they're doing what they're actually doing.
Yeah, and you called this opposames in the past. I mean, we look at Obama here, and you know what's interesting? I heard this yesterday on the Sean Vanity show. I'm in the car, and I'm just trying to find something to listen to. That's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. That Paul Ryan, this new vice president, who's nothing what he says he is. If you look into him a little bit, you'll find insider trading. He doesn't want to cut the budget. He doesn't cut it. It's all bullshit completely. He's from the district where the Wisconsin shooting was. And then yesterday, police took 40 motorists, handcuffed them, and kept them at gunpoint for 2 hours in Aurora, Colorado, because there was a bank robber running around, and now they're justified to do this. You see, talk about predictive programming and how all this stuff seems to kind of fit together if you just can lift the veil off your eyes and see it with your third eye.
Well, people like Romney and people like Obama and people like Clinton, whoever's your running mate has to be a corrupt criminal insider. Because you're not going to be a corrupt criminal insider like Clinton, Romney, Bush, and Obama, and then have an honest man as your running mate and potential vice president. Ain't going to happen. So it's like people say to me, is the president involved? And I say, well, is he the president? That's the question. Well,
is he?
What about Ryan? What do you think? Has he been chosen by Romney to run with him? Answers itself, because to get to these levels, which are very minor levels within the cabal in general, they're just front people. They're just people to sign the legislation and front up the fraud. But to get to that level, you have to be corrupt and often have serious levels of mind manipulation yourself to get to that level, because they don't want mavericks. They don't want people cuckoos in the nest they can't call. This is why these people that get to these levels are invariably mind manipulated themselves, so that they're predictable and are not going to give any surprises. So this is why anyone who's genuine never gets a chance. But look at Ron Paul. I mean, he said a lot of really good things, but he's got no chance of being president under the cabal system, because that's the last thing that they want people to hear is some of the stuff that he's saying, and so they go for the people we've got. They're all criminals. This is why elections are a complete waste of time.
Well, and there's some evidence to show that even Ron Paul isn't everything that people believe he is, and they want to believe. They just want, and look at Rand Paul, what we've been finding out about him recently, and they just want to believe. They want to follow the leader. It's easier that way, David, and I'm sorry that we don't we just switch paradigms. I want to get rid of all the paradigms. I'm a no paradigm guy. You guys go ahead and go to one camp and the next camp and the next camp. I'm going to go all the way to the end with David Icke here and make a mass jump for higher consciousness. This is what we're going to do. Throughout the show today, we're live, and even when we go off the air, I'll keep David for a little while. You can email me at jackblood@hotmail.com. And if you want to ask David questions, is that okay with you, David, if we do that?
Yep. Yeah, that's okay.
All right. And I have a couple coming in, so we're going to get to those before we're done. You guys hit me at jackblood@hotmail.com, and we'll get those questions in front of David, because it's just so rare to get to sit down with him like we do, and I'm so honored that he does it with us. Now, let's go back a little bit. In the last interview, we played a little clip on the Opie and Anthony show. Donald Rumsfeld was on, and the comedian Louis C.K., I think it was, asked him if he's a reptile. And he won't deny it, actually. I want to play that real quick to remind people of what we were talking about, and then I want to play this Muse clip and get your opinion on that. David Icke is with us, davidicke.com. Here is Donald Rumsfeld not denying he's a reptile, flesh-eating reptile.
Almost anybody in the world.
Yeah.
But I still want to know if he's a lizard.
And if he is, stop it.
If he's tasted human flesh.
No, stop.
I just want to know.
Mr. Rumsfeld, again, I want to apologize for Louis C.K. He's a stand-up comedian. He's playing at the Borgata. Go to Borgata.com.
Look, if he's a lizard who has eaten people.
Don't encourage him. It'll just make him worse.
See, and
I will stop the
Mr.
second
Rumsfeld.
I get a denial. I'll stop asking.
Tell Louis that my grandchildren are listening.
See?
Well, listen,
Grandchildren
they have a right to know, too.
No, he's not a lizard, and he's not tasted human flesh.
Well, you're answering. That's easy for you to say.
I can answer because I know the guy is a great American, a great patriot.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
He's done great things for this country. And
yes, Anthony, is he a lizard? Is Dick Cheney a lizard?
No, they're not. They are people.
Any Mexican babies? Have they eaten any human beings?
Stop it. Stop it. I know, Mr. Rumsfeld, I apologize. Louis C.K.
I paid for this microphone, mister. I want an answer.
Funny.
All right, so, David, what is the operation going on here? To discredit you, to discredit that this could even be a possibility, to, I guess, in a kind of a backhanded way, make fun of you? Or do you, I can't remember what you said last time. You just find it interesting that Rumsfeld could just say, no, that's ridiculous. I'm not a shape-shifting, blood-drinking lizard.
Well, he could have said that. But, I mean, you see, when you've had the life that I've had over the last nearly quarter of a century now, of being at one point, ridiculed wherever I went in Britain, walking down any street, any bar, anywhere, what people say about you is irrelevant. I mean, it doesn't even go in one ear and out the other. It just goes over the top and round, really. And they don't have to discredit me by talking about the reptilian thing. All they have to do is talk about the reptilian thing and link it to me, because we're back to the lie and the limit on the sense of possibility. Boing, 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 boing. That cannot possibly encompass the fact that what we see with our 5 sense sight, with invisible light, is only one level of these people. And there are other levels beyond human sight, other levels of frequency,
provable,
where they look very different. Most people aren't going to encompass that. I've been very surprised and delighted, really, at how many people are beginning to say, well, hold on, it sounds crazy, but actually when you put it together with all the other stuff, it does start to make sense. I've been surprised at how many I did. And people have said to me, when you came out with that, didn't you think people would think you were mad? And I'm thinking, do you know I did? Isn't that funny? But what are we going to do? Run away from it? Oh, I can't say what I believe is the truth, and I've spent 25 years nearly researching, because they might laugh at me. I couldn't give a damn. I want the truth. You know why I want the truth? Because without it, we are going to end up in a nightmare world, and we're already beginning to see serious elements and serious levels of that coming in. And this is just for starters, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't like what's happening now, if we don't open our minds to actually what is really happening and the depth that it goes, and thus find the way that we turn it around and we change it.
David,
because
hold
we ain't
on.
going to change it around, shouting at the movie screen, saying, change the movie, change the movie. Oh, let's protest. Let's vote for Ron Paul, then everything will be fine. All that stuff. That's shouting at the movie screen, demanding that it changes. It ain't going to. We have to go from where it's coming from, and this is where we have to open our minds and seriously move that sense of possibility, and not accept everything without question, no, but not dismiss it by reflex action without actually giving it a chance. So in terms of the reptilian thing, Jack, all they've got to do is say this is what this guy's saying, and loads of people, the vast majority of people who hear it will go, he must be mad. I couldn't care less.
Well, you sell tens of thousands of books. You sell out your arenas where you do an amazing and very entertaining, by the way, folks, and funny. If you have not seen David Icke live, you don't know what you're missing. It's so entertaining, so funny. Mancow was at the last show that I was at, and I know he loved this. I mean, just because it's entertaining, if nothing else. But here, I'm going to play this Muse clip for you, David, because it's on the same level. But let me just say this, because if people are out there going, oh, this is a bunch of rubbish, what they need to remember is at one time you thought the basic conspiracies that you do believe in now were rubbish and conspiracy and crazy talk. How did you get to this level just to shut down to maybe potentially another level? All possibilities have to be explored if you truly have an open mind and you want to know the truth. That's just the bottom line here. Let me play. This is Matt Bellamy and Muse being interviewed, I think, from about a year or so ago. And they talk about the Illuminati and reptilians, and I want to play that for you and kind of get your comments, because you were opening up your show, maybe you still do, with the Muse.
No, not now, no.
With the Muse song.
It changes all the time.
Okay, with the Muse song Uprising, which has very just amazing lyrics, which are seeping into the subconsciousness of Americans as it's being played everywhere, sports stadiums and talk radio. But I want my listeners to hear this, and I want you to hear it, and let's see what kind of interpretation we get. Here it is.
Like, do you guys run into any problems with people thinking that you are sort of aligning yourself with these people who are fighting the New World Order and stuff?
Well, it's the opposite, actually. We're aligning ourselves with the New World Order, and I've managed to get myself involved into that whole scene. I've done a lot of research into it, and the deeper you go, the darker you go, you actually realise you actually are one of them.
Right.
And because you start to learn the mind control tricks that these people use. You know,
of course,
it's very, very straightforward, actually. And,
so how far into the resistance?
So I've actually used those skills in order to help this band become more popular. So, and in the process of doing that, you end up becoming one of those, and so you end up becoming what you hate.
Right.
But actually, you have a lot more fun. It's less paranoia, and it's a bit more enjoyable lifestyle.
And you will eventually rule the world, I suppose. towards the end.
Maybe you've chosen to go on the Ark.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Because aren't they sort of, there's conflicting ideas as to when the world's going to end, or the New World Order is going to finally control the world and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, it seems to be a lot of research involved in all of this.
Are you taking this seriously?
No.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Although if you are, there's an Ark, please.
I will if you will. Well, I won't if you won't. Yeah.
Well, let's not talk so much about the Illuminati.
Yeah.
All right, so there you are, David. A lot of doublespeak there. Well, what do you make of all of that? I mean, is this just a way to kind of entertain people and be sarcastic and funny? Are they trying to say anything here? Because a couple of my listeners interpret that as a full-on admission that they're working for the other side.
I don't know what they were getting at there, and I don't really care. I mean, we had a classic mainstream media host, and we had a couple of guys who really don't know what the game is. Matt Bellamy did an interview in which he said he was turned on to this stuff by reading Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and he seems to be operating basically at that level, and it goes much deeper than that. Now, there could be many dynamics going on there. He could be not wanting to come out and say, yes, I actually agree with this, for fear of
reprisal,
ridicule and not loss of face with some people, or he might just be at the level of confessions of an economic hitman. But he did say something very true there, that the methods of manipulation have been used to promote news. They had to be, because they're used to promote all these major bands and these major entertainment people. And in many ways, it is easier in the short term to just accept it and go with it. But, that's just in the moment. That's just in the now. That's just me. I guess, I don't know what his family background is, Matt Bellamy and the guys from Muse and these other people, but presumably at some point they're going to have children. They haven't already, and they're going to have grandchildren.
Well, he's having children with Kate Hudson, who's ruined a few rock stars in her day and looks a little bit like a monarch model.
Well, you know more about the old rock scene than I do, mate. But what I'm saying is that the children they have now, the children they possibly will have, and the grandchildren they will have, look them in the eye and tell them that it's easier just to go with it and it's more fun, because people. To a large extent, even those that have opened their mind to some of it, it's still a game, it's still an add-on, it's still train spotting or plane spotting, it's still a hobby. But if they really knew the scale, the nature of the world that is designed to be introduced, then if their hair isn't curled, it would curl, and if it is curled, it would uncurl, because they'd go running home crying to their mum if they knew what was really planned. And this is why people like me and you and others have given our lives to try to alert people to, like I said earlier, if you think it's bad now, if you don't like what's happening now, well, strap in, mate, because multiply it by 1,000% and then multiply it some more by the time we get to 2030, 2050. People have no idea, and this is a big thing. One of the greatest ways that this cabal prosper and control is simply the sense of me. Does it affect me? What's in it for me? What are the consequences for me? Well, the consequences for me, if I go with it, is I'll be a big star and I make lots of money and people cheer me and I'll be great. And what's the consequences for me of challenging this stuff? Oh, well, it's not so good. It's not so good. So I'm not going to challenge it, because what's the best thing for me? Going with it. So we have these people in dark suits administering this thing. We have the bureaucrats, we have the people in uniform, we have all of these people. We have these, I tell you, Jack, we have these celebrities, some of which have actually contacted me, and I met one or two, and they've gone, oh, you're doing a great job, thank you very much. So now, what are you going to do with the massive platform, public platform that you have, to communicate this information and make a difference? Answer: silence.
Yeah, I know. I've had the same thing happen. Yeah.
He's in it for me. Oh, I'm glad you're doing it, Dave. I'm glad you're doing it, Jack. But me, if I did it, well, I'd lose this, I'd lose that, and I wouldn't get a big movie anymore. I would lose me contract and all that stuff. All this business, it's me. Well, that's fine. But one day, I say to these people, me is going to knock on your door. And you're going to realize that reality dawns, and you're going to realize the world that by your silence, when you had the opportunity, you have allowed to unfold for the later years of your life and for most of the life of your kids and all the life of your grandkids.
Yeah, David, look, I was fairly rich and famous. I was running big companies and making a lot of money and doing what I was supposed to do for the most part and playing my part, and it was very nice. I got a lot of perks, and this is what people say, well, Jack, you're just doing this to make money and to be famous. No, I actually already was. I actually gave that up to do this, and it's very similar with you, even on a higher level, head of the Green Party, BBC presenter, sports athlete, star in England, all of that. You could have kept going on your path. You'd be living in a giant mansion on the hill right now, reading and repeating the news for people, but instead you did this.
I wouldn't, Jack. I'd have taken the pill by now if that had been my life. I'd have taken the pill and left this reality, I tell you. The thought of continuing in that life, in that world, oh my goodness me, I just shudder. But, I have no problem with people, pursuing their career. I have no problem with people making money and all that, as long as it's legitimate and not screwing people. The problem I have is people who have a platform to make a difference, who say they understand what's going on and they're so glad you're doing what you're doing, who then do nothing to use that platform because they fear the consequences for them. It's all about me, me, me. And, that me is one of the, it's often lost, when people list divide and rule structures and techniques. They say religion, they say race, they say income bracket and all that stuff and what have you. You very rarely hear on the list me, me, me. That is the greatest divide and ruler of all in so many ways, because I'm going to make my decisions not on what is right, not on what is just, not on what needs to be done to turn this world around. I'm going to make my decisions on what's right for me, what benefits me, what makes good consequences for me. And if we go on doing that for much longer, we will me as into them, because we will give the very divide and rule necessary. It's like that great line by the pastor in Nazi Germany. First they came for the Jews, I was not a Jew, so I did nothing. Then they came for the communists, I was not a communist, so I did nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists, I was not a trade unionist, so I did nothing. Then they came for me, and there was no one else left to speak out for me. And this is what's happening. And if we keep looking the other way, then eventually, like I say, me knocks on our door and asks for our papers. And by then, all the other people who together could have changed it, they're all no longer here. And this is why we cannot go on the way we are. Because, I think it was Einstein who said, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is the ultimate confirmation of insanity. So therefore, we have to do something differently if we're going to change what we're constantly repeating. And to do that, we need to look in the mirror and say, what do I have to change about me? And the big thing we all have to do is say, what do we have to do to contribute or to stop underpinning this system of human control that's getting more incessant and more extreme by the day? That's the first thing. There's nothing more important in anyone's life than that. Oh, my kids are more important. Okay, so what kind of world are your kids going to live in if you don't make a contribution to this, if you don't stop underpinning it? Everything comes from this. Oh, no, my health's more important. They want to destroy your health, and you've seen nothing yet if nothing's done. Oh, my bank account's more important. Oh, really? Well, what about when they crash the banking system and whatever you've got in the bank is worthless? Which it is now, except we take it seriously. Everything, people, comes down to sorting this out. It is the number one priority on planet Earth.
Well, David, I am not going to be told how to behave by people that put nooses around their necks and get on the train every morning to be a slave for somebody to earn credits of which they don't own anything. These people put nooses around their necks. Let's just stop and think about that for a minute, David. They call them ties. They're really nooses. I mean, what are they telling us? I'm not listening to these people. They're not telling me how to run my life or live my life, and I don't care.
Well, because one of the rituals when you join the Freemasons, I think it's in the bottom 3 degrees, is you have a noose around your neck.
Coincidentally enough.
You're right. That's the necktie. I mean, that's what it is. It's an upside down noose.
But they don't even see it. These people put a noose around their neck every day because they have to, or they don't fit in, and they can't get paid, and they can't earn their credits to get their big screen TV that they don't own. They don't even notice it's a noose.
But you see, this is interesting because we come back to what we were talking about earlier. A symbol is an information field, and the information field is created by the intent behind the symbol. So if you put a symbol up, for instance, of the Statue of Liberty, you might tell people that it's about liberty, but actually, as can be well documented, the Statue of Liberty is an image of the ancient goddess of Babylon and was given to New York by French Freemasons in Paris, and there's a mirror image of the Statue of Liberty on an island in the River Seine in Paris. So you look at the Statue of Liberty, and you might think it's liberty, but by making that energetic connection, you are connecting with something that represents this cabal. And therefore, that cabal is, again, trawling your energy. So if you've got a tie around your neck, which represents a noose, then that is the energy around you, in your energy field, around your neck, that will be resonating to, and it will be influencing you. The more you have a noose around your neck, which on an energetic level is an electromagnetic information field representing the fact that you're a slave, the more it will impact upon your subconscious sense of self that you are just there to serve and not to reason why, just to take orders, just to do what the boss tells you to do. Yes, sir. No, sir. 3 bags full, sir. Anything you say, sir. This is what these symbols, in this case the tie, is actually doing to us. It's all happening, Jack, on this deeper.
But David. That guy over there, he has a blue tie on. I have a red noose. He has a blue noose. He's the enemy.
Exactly that. And this whole thing about symbols, over the years I've studied the symbols, but I've got really deeply into it in the last little while, because the more that the years have passed, and the more that I've understood through more and more research and experience, the more profound and the more of absolutely the foundation of this control is actually the symbols, because the symbols are a language. I'm speaking now, and what's happening is my vocal cords are resonating a information vibrational field. That's what it is. And when my words are passing between me and other people, as they pass between me and someone else, they are not words. They are a vibrational information field. They are silent. And then what happens is the ear of the receivers picks up that resonance field and decodes it into electrical information, which is communicated to the brain, which decodes it into the words they think they're hearing. So that is the vocal language that people accept is the way people communicate. But what is it? It's a vibrational information field carrying the thoughts and expressions that someone has said. The language of symbols is simply another form of information field, which it invariably talks not to the ears, of course, but talks to the eyes. And the eyes decode subconsciously, or that acuity decodes the information in the symbol, and we get influenced by it. They're not putting these symbols, Jack, all over the place. They're not filling entertainment and Madonna Super Bowl halftime shows and Lady Gaga shows and titles of television shows and all this stuff. They're not doing that for a bit of fun. They know that they're communicating subconsciously to us through the language of symbols. And that's why the language of symbols goes throughout the ancient
what
ancient
do they
story.
say? We own you, as George Carlin said. By the way, we have booked George Carlin's wonderful daughter on the show for next week, and I think that should be pretty fun. He's just an amazing guy who cut through a lot of this, tried to tell people what was going on a much higher level, like Bill Hicks. In fact, you have commented recently about using humor to communicate, and then we get a lot of people. They're very serious, they're very angry, and of course the people that listen to these people also get too serious and too angry. They're not able to communicate to their friends, their neighbors, their coworkers, because that anger, it looks like they're reptilians, and it is kind of a way the reptilian response to some of this. But it's great to use humor as we communicate the bigger messages.
Yeah, Jack, we're back to the same theme. What they want to do with this electromagnetic field, some people call it the Earth's energy field, doesn't matter. I mean, the energy sea in which we constantly live our lives in this reality, they want to lower its vibrational state because they want to lower its informational state. They do not want it enlightened. They want it stupid. They want it lower vibrational. Because if you, it's a simple question. How do you affect all the fish at the same time? You affect the sea they swim in. Got 'em. So if you want to get to all of humanity, then you target the energy sea in which we're living our lives all the time. And so, and not only that, as I've been writing about for so many years, these entities behind this, that are behind the bloodlines that we see in human form, they feed off human energy. They're trawling human energy. They're energy vampires. And when they trawl our energy, what else are they trawling? They're trawling our creativity. They're trawling our potential, which they can then use, because they lack those things for reasons I explain in my new book, Wembley, and then they recycle our own creativity back upon us in a different form to creatively control us. And so they want us in a low vibrational state, because not least because that's the only energy they can absorb. They can't absorb the energy of love and joy and laughter. They want the energy of low vibrational, low emotional states. And thus, which comes around to the whole humor thing you're talking about, if we respond to what they're doing, for instance, economically, by going out in angry protests and throwing fire bombs and petrol bombs, as happened in some places in Europe and all that stuff, what are we doing? We are feeding the energy field with exactly the energetic, emotional energy that they want to fill the field with. So, we need to break that cycle. You don't have to get...
Well, Huxley was right. You got to beg for this. You've got to ask. You've got to let the vampire in the door. You got to invite them in. They want you, and this is kind of what Occupy and all this stuff gets into. Please tax us more. Please put on more handcuffs and more regulations so that we have social justice for everybody. And they get us to really beg for our own slavery, because they cannot punish human consciousness into doing what they want to do. It won't work. It has to be Pavlovian. It has to be, risk and reward. It has to be, please beg for it. Get out and beg for it. And that's what I see we're doing. Wembley Arena is where David Icke will be. Remember who you are. The 9-hour, it's not a lecture, folks. This is a show like you have never seen before. I wish I could be there, David. October 27th, 2012. Maybe tickets are still available. Tell everyone. Let's have a mass movement, because it is a global awakening. They once thought David was crazy. Well, now they're coming in their thousands all over the world to see him. I've seen him a few times. It's life-changing. David Icke, remember who you are? Wembley Arena. I wanted to promote that, David, because we're going to go off live here in about 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'm going to keep you, and we're going to answer some of these emails, if you would. DavidIcke.com to find out all things David Icke, including headlines. Thank you, David, for linking to us occasionally. Remember Who You Are is the latest book, and I happen to know there's a new book, as always, you're working on right now as we speak, that will be coming out. The Lion Sleeps No More, the last one, just amazing, full of 5 senses information and then higher consciousness information. So it's something for everybody. David, anything else you need to get out or plug or anything before we lose the live audience?
No, it's just that, I want Wembley to be a massive focus. We've got lots of ideas, which we're going to see if they work out to make it, even bigger and more worldwide. We're going to see what is possible. But it's basically what I'm looking to do here is what I've just described that the Illuminati families do, only in reverse. Because, the energy field that we live in is not good or bad. It's an energy field. And it's like a microphone or a notebook or a television camera. They're not negative or positive in and of themselves. It's the way they're used. It's what you do with them. And so if we can get in a lot of people there, many as we can, and some other things that we're talking about as possibilities, we can get this focus. Energy flows where attention goes. And, it's no myth that the Earth is interpenetrated by force lines, which become known as ley lines or meridian lines, dragon lines, they call them in the
33rd parallel, yeah.
These are energy lines of force, and where one or two of them cross, it throws up a vortex. Where lots of them cross, it throws up a vortex which is of global importance in terms of what happens in that vortex affects the entire human energy field, the Earth energy field. Well, one of those major vortexes, which is why we've had the London Olympics at this time, and why London, like Rome, is such a massive center for this global manipulation, is in the city of London. And they have been working that energy field and therefore impacting upon the global energy field all the way through this summer. And what we want to do at Wembley is reverse that, because as an organization in America, the HeartMath Institute, which measures the power and the nature of the electromagnetic energy that is projected by the heart in different states of being. And they say that, the energy of what we call love and appreciation and all these things is thousands and thousands of times more powerful in its impact than low vibrational emotion. You need far more of that to impact upon a situation than you do of love and happiness and joy. And this is why humor, right, is so important, because you can't be frightened and laugh at the same time. And these people are so pathetic, so ridiculous, so utterly insane that you can't take them seriously. You have to take what they do seriously and address it, yes, but they are pathetic. Hillary Clinton is something to be frightened of. Henry Kissinger, David Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, there's something to be frightened of. They're pathetic. Yeah. They're boys and girls in short pants, and they only have their power because they take human power in the ways that I'm describing.
That's right. Ridiculing them does take their power away, and I know people don't like it. They think it's not nice, it's not professional, and all of this. I've learned that on a pretty high level. Even when there are entities that could come into you, you need to, in your own mind, put them in a tutu and ridicule them. Hey, we got to save the rest of this, David, because now I have to go to No Agenda show, cuts in right now with the great Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak. They just do an amazing show. That's going to come on live. It'll be backstage, and then they'll come up in about 15 minutes, and you'll listen to them on No Agenda, on the No Agenda stream. We'll continue, David, on a few other streams, and we'll also archive this for our listeners. We'll keep you for 15, 20 more minutes. I did want to read some emails, so even if you'll stay a little later, just a tiny bit longer, I want to get all the email questions to you, and we'll try to get through as many of those as we can. David Icke, davidicke.com, playing at Wembley Arena in October. Also, his books are excellent. Please, open your mind and be a part of this. That's the main thing. His videos are all free. You can see them on YouTube and on davidicke.com. All right, David, we'll take a quick break here, about 4 minutes. We'll come back more with the one and only David Icke, and I'm Jack Blood. This is